so that we can post it to our YouTube once the briefing is over. So just letting everyone know that your faces are in it because it's a webinar. If you have any questions for Jacob at the end, you can use the Q&A function. So if you have any questions, we'll answer them all at the end using that. Thank you for attending our first virtual briefing. There might be some kinks here and there since it is our first one, but again, thanks for attending. So without further ado, our speaker this week is Jacob Morse, and he is the head of communications for Campus Weather Service and a senior in the Department of Meteorology. So Jacob, if you want to share your screen now, I think you should be able to.
Let's see. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Alrighty, awesome. Sorry I have to wear the mask. I'm in the Walker building in between classes right now. But if you don't know me, my name is Jacob Morse. I'm the head of communications of the Campus Weather Service. I'm a senior this year in the weather forecasting and communications option, minoring in GIS. This picture in the background I took yesterday on my bike ride. It was a gorgeous day yesterday, low humidity, temperatures in the 70s. So a taste of fall almost, and we'll be talking about that in today's briefing. So this is what I was planning on talking about in the briefing today. I wanted to recap Hurricane Laura, which made landfall last week. I also wanted to recap last week's severe weather that happened throughout most of the week across Pennsylvania, and then taking a look at current conditions today, and then a look ahead into the forecast for the rest of this week and into the long range as well. So first, recapping Hurricane Laura, here's a great view from the International Space Station of Laura. And I want to talk about some of the facts about how the forecast evolved and then what happened at landfall. So the Hurricane Center did a great job with the forecast, in my opinion. They pinned down the landfall location early. However, with the intensification of Laura, it really rapidly intensified in the Gulf. On the right there, that's a GIF of it pretty rapidly intensifying as it approached Louisiana. So that was a little bit more of a challenge with the forecast. Here's a GIF of that forecast evolution. The main steering in the upper levels of the atmosphere with Laura was a big ridge over the southeastern United States. And this steered Laura towards the west and kept pushing the storm more westward, kind of as the forecast evolved. But once they honed in on the Texas-Louisiana coastline border, it really pretty much stayed there throughout the rest of the forecast. And this is just an animation of all of the forecasts from the National Hurricane Center showing how they locked in on that forecast location. The storm surge was really forecast to be a major impact from Laura. The National Hurricane Center and some of their forecasts use pretty vivid kind of language, using words like unsurvivable, this will cause catastrophic damage, could penetrate 30 miles inland from the immediate coastline. So very strong wording that they used with the storm surge that could impact from the center of where Laura was expected to make landfall, as well as points east throughout most of the coastline of Louisiana. And these are pretty swampy areas, so the water can, like they said, penetrate pretty far inland. With Laura's eye, this was a couple of interesting satellite loops. Whenever a hurricane really gets going and forms a really distinct eye, it's beautiful on satellite imagery. Obviously, it's very destructive, though, once it makes landfall. But some interesting things, there were some mesovortices that showed up. I noticed this one tweet on Twitter posted this about some transient mesovortices along the eye. This was also seen with another strong hurricane in this part of the Gulf, Hurricane Harvey, a couple years ago. And then on the radar view of things, you can see a polygon kind of shape with the eye with 5 almost sides to it. And that was another kind of interesting fact about Laura's eye. Talking about some of the modeling stuff with it, the HWRF did actually a pretty good job with it. This is one guy on Twitter pointing out that from 3 days when Laura was way back near the coast of Haiti, the HWRF did a good job of picking out the intensity of the storm when some of the other models weren't hinting on the really rapid intensification. I know the Euro had some ideas of pushing it farther west into the Houston area, so that was something to definitely pay attention to, because a couple of miles jog to the west could have meant a catastrophe for those people of Houston once again. And then looking as it kind of made its trek up towards the coastline of Louisiana, there was lots of talk about being upgraded to Category 5 at landfall, with the rapid intensification continuing. There's a recon mission that went in just before landfall that detected winds of 150 to 155 miles per hour, which is, again, high-end Cat 4. And the evolution of the estimated minimum pressure and the center of Laura kept dropping like a rock, basically, with each observation. Luckily, it leveled off just before landfall and didn't get upgraded to a Category 5, although when you're talking strong Category 4 to weak Category 5, the impacts really don't change a whole lot. It's just what really goes down in the record books that matters. So what actually happened, the eye passed right over Lake Charles, where there was crazy amounts of wind damage seen. But fortunately, if there is some silver lining, the worst of the storm surge stayed to the east of Lake Charles. This is Josh Morgerman, Eye Cyclone on Twitter, again, right in the middle of the eye of the storm, showing a radar picture of it right over the Lake Charles area. But again, the storm surge a little bit farther to the east than maybe predicted, therefore sparing Lake Charles from the worst of the storm surge, although remember that they are pretty far inland. But just the wind damage as they went through the core of the eye wall was crazy. The radar in Lake Charles was completely demolished. There was buildings, a couple of skyscrapers with windows knocked out. One of the TV towers completely knocked down, roofs ripped off houses. So that's what 150 mile per hour winds will do as it crosses a city. So pretty incredible damage from the eye wall of Laura. Another couple of pictures from Sulphur, Louisiana on the left there, just west of Lake Charles, showing some of the crazy wind damage from the eye wall. And as I mentioned, there was some areas of catastrophic storm surge, but like I said, we were a little bit more fortunate because the storm surge was east of Lake Charles for the most part, in some wildlife refuges and some less populated areas of the Louisiana coastline. Here's a GIF showing the before and after images from Cameron, Louisiana, which is right along the coast. So the coastline, anywhere where Laura passed over, didn't get spared from the storm surge. And you can see just the amount of flooding that took place from that storm surge. And then looking at the sea surface temperatures after Laura passed through, you can really see the cold wake that the storm left behind. So just some facts about the storm that are really interesting in my opinion, and these are all from Philip on Twitter, who's a great follow if you are not already following him. In terms of the month of August, there's only 7 other August Category 4 or higher hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico on record, and obviously Laura joins this list. Laura became the strongest August hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico since Katrina back in 2005. In terms of Laura's rapid intensification, it intensified by 65 miles per hour in just 24 hours, from 75 miles per hour to 140, which is the fastest 24-hour wind intensification since Maria back in 2017. And it seems like we're seeing more and more of these rapid intensifications, especially in the Gulf of Mexico, leading up to landfall. With the maximum winds at landfall, had 150 mile per hour max winds, which was the strongest hurricane to make landfall in Louisiana since the last island hurricane way back in 1856. And Laura joins an exclusive list of only 9 hurricanes on record, dating all the way back to 1851, that have made landfall in the continental U.S. with 150 mile per hour or more maximum sustained winds. So definitely a very strong storm at landfall. And we added a new dot to this map with Category 4 or 5 hurricanes making landfall in the continental U.S. since 1851. Previously, none had done that in this part of Louisiana, and Laura is this new dot on the map. And then just to demonstrate how active of a hurricane season it's been, Laura became the third hurricane to hit the continental U.S. This year, with Hannah and Isaias being the other two. And there's only been 2 years on record that have had 3 U.S. hurricane landfalls by the time that Laura made landfall back on August 22nd. So very active season, and it looks to continue in some fashion. 80% chance of development with this disturbance that's in the Caribbean. This one, in my opinion, is the most interesting to watch. Some models, such as the HWRF, are picking up on it developing, and then maybe impacting Belize or the Yucatan Peninsula in the coming days. We'll see if it has any impacts on the United States, but right now the more imminent threat would be in Central America. This area of this disturbance has about a 70% chance of forming, according to the NHC, but this would probably move offshore, and then a couple of more waves coming off of Africa. Again, we're nearing the peak of hurricane season, so this is no surprise to see some more development in the tropics. So now switching gears a little bit, looking back at the severe weather that happened in Pennsylvania throughout most of last week, to be honest with you. This is the convective outlook from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And in each day, there was some part of the state that had at least a slight or level 2 out of 5 risk of seeing severe weather. Thursday looked to have the most promise for severe storms, especially across northeastern Pennsylvania. But look at what actually happened. So these are storm reports from all 4 of those days last week: Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Tuesday, we saw some damaging winds and a few reports of some hail in southwestern Pennsylvania. Wednesday, no severe weather reports across Pennsylvania, stayed to the west across Ohio. Thursday, as was advertised, it was the most prominent of the severe weather days, with damaging wind reports across most of the Commonwealth. And then on Friday, the damaging wind reports were more constrained to the southern half of the state, especially down in the southeastern parts of Pennsylvania. So wind was obviously, like I showed with the storm reports, the primary concern with all of these storms, but fortunately, we did get a good amount of rain. There was, in fact, the possibility of some flash flooding due to some of the training thunderstorm clusters on Friday. This is the excessive rainfall outlook on Friday. So we did see some good rain. This was the observations from Walker with at least a trace of rain all the way from Sunday of the previous weekend through the week until Saturday. And Friday, we picked up over 1 inch of rain. And all of this is, as all of you know, well needed for central Pennsylvania with the drought conditions that we're experiencing. Although, even though we saw rain almost every day last week, we're still below normal for the month of August as we wrap it up today, with only receiving just a hair over 2 inches of rain when our normal is around 3.7 inches. But this isn't bad when you consider how dry of a summer it's been. We're wrapping up meteorological summer today, August 31st, and this is shaping up to be the 20th driest meteorological summer on record in State College. So a pretty dry summer. However, this is one of my favorite kind of plots to look at. This is from the Iowa State Mesonet, just showing the accumulated precipitation over the entire year. So the red line is 2020. We started off the year actually around average to above average, but this is when it really leveled off in the middle of June. We basically didn't see any precipitation, very little amount. So we went from above average to below average. The black line is our average throughout the year, throughout the summer months. And you can see that kind of uptick recently, courtesy of those storms last week, getting a little bit closer back to average, but just comparison back to 2018 recently, when we had that crazy wet year, the wettest year on record here in State College, and we're well behind that, but hopefully we can get kind of back up towards average, because our drought conditions still aren't looking great. This is as of August 27th. Still some moderate drought conditions across central and and western Pennsylvania with the drought. So then looking at one of the severe storms, this was on Thursday. This was probably the most interesting in terms of proximity to State College in a little while. A tornado warning was issued for just south of Pine Grove Mills. This is on Friday, excuse me, at around 1:45. You can see a GIF of the radar imagery for the reflectivity as well as the velocity, showing a strong couplet forming there, and that's why the Weather Service issued that tornado warning. And then I did pick up on dual pole radar showing a lower CC value, lower correlation coefficient value. So this could have indicated a tornado debris signature. There was actually a couple of members of the storm chase team that went up Route 26 after the storm to see if there was any damage there. They didn't really find anything, but something could have touched down in the woods maybe, or just some loose leaves or twigs lofted in the air. So something of note, some severe weather here locally with the tornado warning that happened on Friday, and there was a good amount of lightning as well around campus. I know I had a class around this time, and it was a little tricky to make sure I was safe walking to and from classes with all the lightning and thunder in the area. So let me look at some of the current conditions now. I think I have to stop the share and then share my Chrome browser. All right, so hopefully everyone can see this. This is the satellite imagery across the United States now. So now we're going to look at current conditions and then look at more towards the forecast heading throughout the week. So looking at the loop across the whole United States, first thing that stands out to me is this really sharp front across the upper Midwest. It looks like some thunderstorm and shower activity out ahead of that. Here locally in Pennsylvania, we're getting some flow out of the southwest aloft, bringing in some mid to upper level clouds. But if we zoom in a little bit closer to home here, at the surface, you'll notice some easterly flow or some southeasterly flow. So a couple of different layers of clouds there, obviously, and some rain off to our south. And we'll see how close this gets to us. Still some disagreement on how close this will get to us as we head kind of into the afternoon hours today. So looking at that rain off to our south, here's the radar loop with the cluster of showers off into West Virginia, and eastern Kentucky. And this will kind of push off to the northeast and east throughout the rest of the day today. Again, here's that sharp front in the upper Midwest that I was alluding to, some other thunderstorm activity in Missouri and Arkansas this morning. Looking at the surface winds, as I was mentioning, at the surface, the winds are more out of the southeast, bringing in some of that low-level moisture. But if we move up, higher up in the atmosphere, so let's go up to like 850 and 700 millibars, you'll see the flow change to be out of that southwesterly direction like we saw in the satellite imagery. And this will help to bring up some of the thunderstorms from the south, or the showers at least, heading into the afternoon. So surface analysis across the United States, again showing that sharp cold front through Minnesota and Iowa. The low pressure system that's associated with this kind of cluster of showers to our south is located around the Paducah, Kentucky area with a couple of fronts off of that. And that'll, as I mentioned, gradually move off to the east throughout the day today. In terms of temperatures, these are departures from normal for temperatures across the United States on the E-wall. A large chunk of the central United States as well as the northeastern United States seeing below average temperatures. This is a continuation of what we saw yesterday with some of that cooler air working in across the United States. And this plot down here in the lower right again shows the stations in the coldest 10% all in the central and northern plains as well as in the northeast United States. In terms of dew points, again, a large chunk across the northern tier of the country seeing below normal dew points. which is a good sign for people who are not a fan of high levels of humidity and want some more kind of refreshing air. Some lower dew points as well here in the central Pennsylvania area, and we can see that on the University Park observations, dew point right around 54 degrees. So some nice refreshing air still in place. Unfortunately, this won't last too long, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So let me go back to my PowerPoint. Here's what I was alluding to with the humidity, not lasting a whole lot longer. We'll get some southwesterly flow heading into Tuesday and Wednesday near the surface, and whenever that happens, we'll bring in some warmer air from the south as well as some more humid air, and get those dew points back up into the 60s, mid to upper 60s, possibly later in the week. And then the big kind of thing to watch for our weather later in the week is a cold front that will eventually make it through our region heading into Wednesday and Thursday. Before that cold front comes through, looks like we'll see some scattered shower and thunderstorm activity for the for the beginning and middle part of this week at least. So looking at the forecast for this week, let's look at some of the model data. So I'm going to go back to my Chrome browser. First, let's kind of start off with looking at the European model across the United States for precip type. Again, showing that big, strong cold front across the upper Midwest showing up well. This is that cluster of showers that we saw on the radar off to our south. And advancing this forward in time, again, that shower cluster moves kind of up into southern Pennsylvania for sure. It's a question of how far north it'll get as it moves off to the east. As it does so, we'll continue to see the increased amounts of humidity from the south, as well as temperatures rise heading into Tuesday and Wednesday, where we'll be stuck in between a warm front and cold front on Wednesday. And then we'll see that cold front develop off to our north and west, and then push through the state heading into the day on Thursday and exit the region not until maybe we get into Friday morning. So a slow moving kind of system. In terms of more of the higher resolution models, let's look at the NAM heading over the next several hours. So showing that area of showers off to our south, pushing up into our region by the time we get into the afternoon hours. So I would say we can expect at least some light showers heading into the afternoon here in the State College area, maybe some heavier pockets of rain off to our south. And then some, like I said, some scattered shower leftovers for Tuesday before that front develops off to our west Wednesday morning. We'll see more shower and thunderstorm activity, I think, during the day on Wednesday. And then the front will move through heading into Wednesday and Thursday. Again, another high-res model. This is the SPC's HWRF, which is an ensemble product. And this is a good kind of way to look at some of the short-range guidance for precipitation and temperatures, etc. Again, showing the bulk of the rain off to our south, but some couple of showers are possible, I guess you could say, here throughout the later evening, later afternoon and into the evening hours today. And then those showers kind of continue heading into the next couple of days. What I did want to show is kind of the frontal depiction on the WPC's website. So that cold front that was, again, I mentioned in the upper Midwest will gradually make its way to the east. We'll be seeing that showers and thunderstorms from our south. As we move into the day on Wednesday, what I was referring to as the warm front will move through our region, put us into that warm sector, and allow for more showers and storms to develop on Wednesday throughout the day. And then the cold front that is going to be stationed up to our north and west on the morning hours on Wednesday will push through during the day on Thursday. And then by the time we get to Friday, we'll probably see skies begin to clear as all the showers and storms move off to our east, and we get a drop in temperatures for the day on Friday as well. So let me go back to my PowerPoint because I wanted to share a couple other facts as we wrap up meteorological summer. First, let's look at the long-range guidance because there's a couple of interesting things looking at the 2-week outlook as well as weeks 3 to 4. And it looks like we'll be introducing some cooler air from Canada throughout both of these ranges. So next week, very high confidence and below normal temperatures across the central United States, maybe some above average precipitation in the Northeast. You can see 500 millibar plot from the GEFS for next Tuesday, showing a big upper level trough digging into the central United States. So this is something to watch for some much cooler air from Canada making its way into the central United States and eventually over into our neck of the woods in the Northeast by the weeks 3 to 4 outlook for September 12th to the 25th. Below normal temperatures predicted in parts of the Ohio River Valley and the Mid-Atlantic. So we'll see how that turns out heading into the rest of September. But as I was mentioning, I wanted to recap meteorological summer with a couple of facts since today is the last day of August. I already mentioned the dry summer, but in terms of temperatures, the National Weather Service and State College tweeted this out this morning, saying that it's the hottest summer on record in Harrisburg at their international airport, their 133-year record-keeping history. And you can see the chart from XMASIS just showing 2020 is the hottest meteorological summer on record with a mean temp of 78 degrees. For the State College Co-op site, again, records go back here until 1893 with the highest mean temperature through meteorological summer happening this year. So it was a very hot summer for June, July, and August. And on both these charts, I just want to point out that hotter summers are happening more recently. So another climate kind of signal with a lot of them happening after the year 2000. Another kind of diving more into what happened this year, what caused it to be one of the hottest or the hottest summer on record here in State College. We did it with a combination of both high maximum temperatures as well as high minimum temperatures. So in both categories, we were in the top 3. For minimum temperatures, we were second with a minimum temperature of around 64 degrees, average minimum temperature. For maximum temperature, we had an average maximum temperature of around 83 degrees. So one wasn't lacking. Like in some years, like 2016, we had a very high minimum temperature, but our maximum temperature wasn't that high. So we had both that were very high this summer that helped us to be the hottest meteorological summer on record. But interesting thing is that in terms of maximum temperature, the days weren't exceptionally hot. They were just persistently warm. So I went ahead and looked at the number of days with the maximum temperature greater than 80, and we had one of the most number of days throughout the summer. 68 days throughout June, July, and August were above 80 degrees. But in terms of days above 90 degrees, we had a fair number of them. We were 16th in terms of ranking with the number of days greater than 90. However, we're not in like the top 5 or whatever. So we had a lot of days above 80, but not a whole lot above 90, just to show how persistently warm it was. Let me go back into present mode, actually. And then finally, heading into meteorological fall, kind of a look ahead into the months of September, October, and November. Just some normals. September, we'll see normal high temperature around 73, and then it really drops off 61 in October, 49 in November. For average minimum temperature, will again drop off fairly quickly down to an average minimum temperature of 33 degrees for November. Throughout meteorological fall, we should see around 10 inches of rain. We'll see if we can get some more rain in the coming months, with each month seeing around an average of 3 inches of rain. And our sunsets are getting earlier very quickly. We'll see sunsets get before 7 p.m. by October 1st, before around 5 p.m. by November 1st. And by the end of meteorological fall, as we start the month of December, we'll see a sunset around 4:45. And I had to throw this in here just because I'm a snow lover and I can't wait to see some snowflakes falling. I know it might be too soon for some people, but we have seen snow before in meteorological fall, obviously, in the month of November for the most part. And we did see some recently back in 2018, if you remember, that November snowstorm before Thanksgiving break. So I want to thank everyone for the time, and thanks Alex for giving me this opportunity to do this weather briefing today. I'll have any questions if we have any questions from the Q&A.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you, Jacob, for giving our first briefing, very in-depth. So thank you for wrapping up all of the summer and even looking ahead towards the fall. Again, if you have any questions, just put them in the Q&A. If not, you're free to leave and go about your day. So there is one question from Dr. Graybush. First of all, he said great weather discussion, but any comments on the impacts that Laura had once it headed inland?
Yeah, so once it headed inland, it was still pretty strong. I know there was a lot of power outages along the western side of Louisiana, even into parts of Arkansas, I believe, just because the core of the storm and the wind core held together pretty well. So a lot of damage in terms of down trees and power lines in those areas. I think there was a pretty good chunk of rain that also fell into parts of the Mississippi River Valley, and even as it merged with the cold front, we saw some of the remnants kind of over the weekend. So some of the impacts from inland, but obviously the greatest impacts, and where they're still cleaning up from the damage, it was along the immediate coastline of western Louisiana.
Perfect. Dr. Neese asked, what was the highest sustained wind you saw measured with Laura's landfall?
In terms of surface observations, I don't remember. I didn't look at any of the sustained wind gusts or something like that. But from the recon mission, I think the highest it got up to was 150. I don't believe they upgraded it to 155 miles per hour at landfall. I know that there were some storm chasers on the ground there with some observing materials to gather some data. I could probably look at some of their data to see what the actual sustained winds were. I'm sure some of the sites that normally record data, like some airports or whatever, went down with the strong winds. So it'd be interesting to look at some of the actual surface observations from when Laura made landfall.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Jacob, and thank you to everyone who attended this briefing. We won't have a briefing next week because it is Labor Day, even though classes are in session. But the Monday after that, we'll have Dr. Booley come in for our briefing. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to end the meeting now.